Hello, everyone. My name is always Asmal. Welcome to another episode of Tooways to Skin a Cat, the show where we talk career experiences, entrepreneurship, and investments. The main aim is to show that there's more than one way to be successful other than just climbing the corporate ladder. We are sorry for being a few minutes late. We've experienced a little bit of technical difficulties, but we're keen to jump in. We are live on LinkedIn and YouTube, and the show will be available on podcast by tomorrow morning. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on that notification bell to get automatically notified when the next episode comes out. If you're joining us live, drop a one in the comments so that we know we're not talking to ourselves, and drop a two in the comments if you're watching the recording. My guest for this week is Sanele Mkhize, Chartered Accountant and Senior Manager Financial Services at the Transnet National Ports Authority. Sanele, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Wes. I hope you can hear me clearly.
We can hear you clearly. Let's jump straight into questions. Tell us your story, where have you come from, and even outside of work, who is Sanele Mkhize?
Okay. Now, Sanele Mkhize is a young man, grew up in Durban, and moved to Joburg for the first time in 2006. So I got the Tutuka Basari Fund from SAICA. I was studying at Kwamakota High, south of Durban, just at Amanzimdoti, did my matric there. And I moved to Joburg for the first time in 2006 to do my accounting degree, and did my CCA in 2009, and started working in 2010. Actually started my articles with ABSA, Financial Services. I was quite interested in investment banking. It just appeared to be quite an interesting a field. But soon after that, I then moved to Nampak. So I had a change of heart after I'd seen it's a bit of a taste of financial services. So yeah, but I'll just keep it there. Probably outside of my career as well, I am a father to actually a 15-year-old boy who's in grade 11 this year at Adams College in Durban. And then grew up in a very big family, both my mother and my father's son, and currently living in PE, as my profile will tell as we chat a bit later on. But frequently, traveling to Durban. I'm very centered around my home, But I've been traveling a lot, but I always just find a way back home. That is just me.
Okay, perfect. So outside of work, other than Durban is being your home and you've got a son, anything else? What do you do on the weekends? What do you keep yourself busy with? What are your interests?
Yeah. So in terms of my interest, I actually enjoy, trail walking, also being from Durban, time at the beach comes naturally. It's like the default kind of relaxation that we are used to. So even as I'm in PE, I've been loving PE so much because it has a lot of characteristics as Durban. So I do enjoy outdoors, even if I'm watching sports. Enjoy soccer, enjoy rugby, cricket, just outdoor sports. I enjoy watching mostly. I used to play soccer in very early days, but as I started in high school, somehow I just got into a lot of the academic side, that the debate, and sort of academic competitions, the Met Olympiad. At some point, future leaders, I think it was, yeah, future leaders, those business competitions. So I moved away from sports, and it was mainly academics that I was focused on.
Oh, that's amazing. And yes, Durbanites are definitely spoiled. I was there for holiday a few weeks ago, and yes, the beach and the weather in winter, I'm jealous.
Yeah.
But you mentioned, I mean, you're a Durbanite, but you worked in so many different areas in South Africa. So you worked in Durban, you worked in Richards Bay, and now in Gqeberha. Is there a difference in the work ethic or the work environment when you're working in these different towns or cities?
Definitely. Definitely. I mean, yesterday attending the SICA Top 35 under 35 networking event here in Durban, as I'm actually in Durban for the week. we were just chatting with one of the colleagues that with Joburg, you find this that pretty much everything is fast paced, and people are just like so focused in milestones and goal setting, and that type of environment, high pressure, so you feel it in the workplace. You come to Durban. I worked in Durban then from like 2014, coming as a financial accountant at Nampak Flexible at the time, and then Adapt IT as well as a financial accountant in 2015. It's sort of like much more relaxed. It's not that people don't work or they are lazy, but it's just like much more relaxed, and the traffic also obviously it helps. I think in Durban the traffic is better, it's certain times of the day, whereas with Joburg you just find traffic, throughout the day. So there's those dynamics. I think the what do you call this thing? Not just the standard of living, but the quality, the quality of life and how people feeling relaxed. I find that generally, I don't have the stats, or even the experts, but if we were to look, I personally experienced it. My stress levels were just way too high while I was working in Joburg. I really struggled, and hence then also my exams. I actually passed my second qualifying exam after my third attempt, and I wrote it in 2015. Now having moved to Durban, and I found the experience much better, So yeah, for me, Joburg was a serious challenge, from a social side, career wise as well. I was constantly feeling like I need to move, to the next big role, and when in Durban you find people like they stay in positions for a very long time. Now, in turn, it was a bit frustrating when I came back because I'm like, why are these people not moving? So a person is a financial director for 20 years, so, you know, why are these people not moving? But it's just the nature. Some firms and companies are known. These are the people who work there, and they are there for a lifetime. So that's been quite interesting. I find that to be similar with PE as well, where people actually just stay in jobs, which is actually quite nice as well. There's some really valuable lessons when you get into that environment, loads of experience, and then you are expected to lead the team. It can be very challenging, so it has a very diverse way, and you are challenged then to adapt, immediately.
Okay, okay. And tell me, so PE and Durban very similar then, work wise. Am I correct? Is that a good way to explain it?
Yes, that has been my experience. That has been
Okay,
my experience. Yeah.
okay. And talk to us a little bit. I see you had a bit of experience in Nigeria. What was it like when you went, and what are the opportunities in Nigeria for South African professionals?
Yeah. So there was such a great opportunity because I did my articles with Nampak, the Nampak group. It was in Joburg. And so when I moved back to Durban in 2015, and then in 2016, I got my results having qualified as a CA. And so the human capital director at the time, Mr. Chikle, then in 2016, there was a big move from Nampak, in terms of rest of Africa strategy. So they were taking over not so well performing companies, like the one beverage cans in Nigeria. It was Aluken, and they were struggling a bit, and so they took that over from owners who were from the Philippines. So that was quite interesting because the exposure around international banking and suppliers. So I think like in South Africa, if you are working in the South African office, we don't have to worry for a lot around like forex exchange. You release payments weekly. There's cash flow and everything. So with Nigeria 2016 specifically, there was the challenge with shortage basically of foreign currency. So you had to interact with like 6 banks at a time,
Wow.
Citibank, Access Bank, um, you know, all these international banks to try and put yourself first in the queue, and with the central bank in Nigeria on a daily basis, you are actually performing like cash flow management. That was hectic, but it was amazing, and also the importing, of then the steel that and the material that was used, for the manufacturing of cans, the aluminium, being imported in Europe. You're dealing then with the Isle of Man division of Nampak. And so just on a daily basis, issues of time zones, it wasn't too bad because I think we were like 2 hours ahead of SA and like 2 hours behind the UK. So it wasn't too bad. But just on a daily basis, you literally were going in there and you don't know what's going to happen. And you must just try. What I found with Nigeria, whereas I tell you this, relationships go a long way. I got in there, there was a backlog of about $10 million dollars in FECs that Nampak was struggling, to have it paid out. And, in one of my first few days with the MD, we went obviously meeting customers and everything. And one of the bank VPs, was there for Access Bank. And we just started talking, and he says to the MD, his name was Andrew, I mean, why were you guys not telling me about this? You've been a valuable client and definitely you should be prioritized, So we started talking, started having, he gave me his number, just chatting to him, explaining our situation, within a couple of weeks, everybody almost couldn't believe it. It was the biggest highlight for me. Within a couple of weeks, we got approval, FEC, $10 million made available for Nampak. It was great, great celebration, South African office. I love that. Just truly, relating with people at a people level. The staff that I was training there, on IFRS, on policies that were, for the South African head office, acknowledging that they've got a good level of competence, and not just coming with, the idea that chartered accountant SA, is the best in the world. I mean, you can obviously keep that mentality for your own confidence, but you should be careful, to not let that be the barrier, because people will say, then if you're so good and the best in the world, then you go ahead, do what you have to do, and you won't get very far. So that for me, that balance very quickly, just getting in there with an open mind, blank slate, understanding that the people that are there have a good level of competence, and then you are probably having to tweak a couple of things, guide on a few things, on a certain approach, and then you've got a winning formula. Nigeria was really good for me.
So, is there good opportunities for South Africans in Nigeria? What do you think about that?
Absolutely. Look, MTN, for an example, has had some serious challenges, in terms of compliance. Unilever, has had some serious challenges. Other companies, Shoprite, had serious challenges. They withdrew. I kept contact with the colleagues that side for some time. I don't know currently, the situation. I know one of the colleagues has also moved like to Zambia. But from what I experienced was the fact that I do believe that also at a diplomatic level, there is a good opportunity, from an African Union perspective, that we align in terms of what is the necessary level of compliance. I just think the environment in Nigeria is so dynamic and so great, but it's shortchanged by the multiple layer states, of compliance. So you're paying a tax on the state, like we were in at Akbara, a city, Ogun State. There's a tax, for the state and for the national government. It's environmental. So businesses, get frustrated with that. And so for me, I think if we could streamline that at the continental level, there's just so amazing opportunities. If we can adopt the types of like the UAE kind of regional integration, we could really go very far. I do think there is still plenty opportunity in the rest of Africa for South Africans.
No, that's amazing. That puts it into perspective. For the audience, we'll be responding to questions towards the end. So please add your questions to the comment section now so that we don't miss them. You mentioned that you did your articles at Nampak, so basically outside of public practice. But at that time, it was still the exception rather than the rule when you did articles outside of public practice. Tell us about that experience you had there. How did you compare to your colleagues who were explaining about their audit articles, and would you recommend the path to others?
Yeah. So what I found, like the one thing for me is that I struggle with like working late, So even at varsity, I would struggle with like cross nighting and starting through the night, and so for me, like I did vacation work, obviously with like PwC, KPMG when I was still at varsity. And I instantly like the culture with audits, the deadlines, the rush. I could tell that it was not going to work for me, So I enjoy like steady approach, so sort of like fixed hours kind of environment. And so that's why I also had a serious culture shock with financial services at ABSA, because it's around the clock. You literally, the guys, would tell you it could be brushing his teeth. There must be a screen somewhere, watching currencies and all of that. And that just scared me off. I'm a person who prefers to be focused at work when it's time for work, but also be able to disconnect. So the audit environment, I found even with my mates that, they were just, working like constantly on weekends. At Nampak, I didn't have to do weekends. I probably, it was at year end stock counts, year end audits that you do some late hours, but really on the day to day, it's the same now with where I am, like with Transnet. I mean, you're just doing standard working hours, on exceptional periods of audits and year end where you are like working late. So I found that the culture with audits, obviously, because you could be servicing various clients, so you truly have to be very flexible with the hours. I mean, I recommend commerce, because I do think that it plays an important role in terms of developing like business accountants, whereby traditionally or previously we would have sort of audit trained accountants, coming over to lead commercial organizations. And unfortunately, I mean, yesterday in the SICA event, this was being spoken about, that unfortunately in the past there was a bit of a lack of the human element, like emotional intelligence, because of the nature of the audit work previously. Look, I think it's evolved certainly over the years, use of technology, remote work and everything, and so I wouldn't discourage a person absolutely to say no, don't go for audits, but I will definitely advocate for doing your articles, with commerce organizations, like of SAP, the banks, amazing programs. Just for as a person who also has a good sort of like entrepreneurial mindset. That for me, I think gets like quickly developed with a commerce training.
I like what you said about the thing that stood out for me is that you knew the type of person you were, so you pivoted so that it suited your personality, and that is brilliant. But
Yeah.
moving on a little bit, you worked at Transnet now for a few years.
Yes.
How is the work at the state-owned entity different to a normal corporate? Is it the same? Are the pressures different? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Oh, ways, I'm very grateful for my experience, really, because with Transnet, I joined them in Richards Bay like 2018, but in 2019, I found myself putting in a resignation letter. Like I couldn't. So what you find, with the SOE is that there is the expectation of performance, from, well, obviously financial reporting perspective. So Transnet, is uses IFRS obviously for financial reporting, but there's this other elements of the PFMA. There's the elements of the procurement. Triple PFA. Which is like so compliance based. A lot of committees. For an infrastructure project to be approved has to go various gate reviews and everything. I just couldn't understand it. What I find is that with an SOE, I think there is an overkill of governance. You know, for me, it stifles the potential. I mean, that like Transnet, the likes of Transnet, could be having in terms of advancing infrastructure development, in the country. There's an overkill in governance, which is probably coming from a good place. It's public funds, it's public funds. So there's got to be checks and balances, additional controls, and all of those things. Nonetheless, you find that it's still the place with the most mismanagement, even with those controls, because obviously people are very quick to learn the system, you know, and they'll just play the game, delay the signature to the next person and stuff, and not want to commit. I found that initially that was very frustrating for me. That why can't I make a decision? You understand? Why can't I know what I need? Like in a team, for example, things like recruitment. I know the type of team that I need, but actually can't make that decision. I had to kind of go through the hoops, of HR policy, this, that policy, that. So with SOE, you really, if you don't like rules, like I don't like rules, but you learn, you actually learn, because there's a fulfilling uh, 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 part about it, just serving the public. So there's a good balance over time, like you learn. So I've adapted, and I see myself just growing, within the SOE space, really up to executive level. I think I no longer have that desire, that I used to have to, want to be in commerce and get cracking, so, so there's a maturing feeling that I don't know if I'm getting old, but I'm enjoying it now. I'm enjoying the rules at the SOEs.
I've got a few more questions, but the questions are flying through in the comments. I rather want to get to the
Right.
audience's questions. We've got a question
Yeah.
from Bulelani, who says he wants to pick your brain. What role do you
Right.
think the CASA should play to assist in addressing South Africa's challenges of youth unemployment and poverty facing the majority of our brothers and sisters? That's a big one, that one.
Yeah. No, that's a big one. And thanks, Bulelani, a good friend and colleague. It is a big one. I think, the likes of Bulelani, CFO in the pension funds,
Yeah.
institution, and board, definitely. And I was speaking to one of the colleagues in the Abasa event, that we certainly need more CASAs in the public sector. There is like effect in we need more CASAs in the public sector, because our training does give us that leverage, of seeing things a bit differently, from probably other professionals, and being able to apply some innovative solutions, but as a direct thing, I think the CASA has to open themselves up with encouraging entrepreneurship. I mean, I think the likes of like Andile Kumalo, for an example, good example, they've dedicated themselves into promoting entrepreneurship in every corner, like every school. I did some tutorials at my local schools some years ago, and grade 11, like accounting students. The language or the gospel that I was preaching there is thinking about what is it that the students can create, because in fact, it's very difficult in the economy that we are in. The rest of Transnet is trying currently. There is a big program in terms of internships. About 400 interns. It's been opened up, to join Transnet. So that makes a bit of a difference. But organizations can absorb up to so much. So I think really our best bet is to emphasize the culture of creating. That for me is I would say is our best bet at this stage.
Agreed. And if I can add just a small bit to that, just be that role model for people to see. If people can see you achieving, then they can see that's something that they can live up to. So just be that for the people. We've got a question from Bryn, who wants to know, is it difficult to go abroad if you do your articles in commerce?
I think, yes, there is a limitation, because it now depends on your organization having a footprint overseas, whereas with the audit firms, it's almost a given, the likes of your PwC, Deloitte, PKF, all the audit firms, EY, they've got a footprint across the globe, so the chances of moving abroad are 10 times higher, whereas with like a commerce organization like Nampak, I only got that opportunity because there was a change in strategy within the organization to focus into the rest of Africa. I think, yes, there is a limitation in terms of doing articles in commerce, as opposed to a person who's in audit. Audit has much more opportunities in terms of moving abroad.
They do have much more opportunities. I'm also noticing that people in that don't do audit articles, but maybe do transaction advisory, there also seems to be opportunities there.
Correct.
So
financial services. Yep. Correct.
There we've got a question from Siviwe, who says, does Transnet have a financial services business unit? Because he's struggling to understand the title. If yes, what does the business unit do? So Siviwe, I had to shorten his title because I was running out of space, but I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah. No, so for Transnet, it's basically the finance department, right? So financial services, not in the sense of insurance or investments, it's in the sense of financial reporting. So how it was developed is the fact that so as the finance manager, so senior manager financial services, it's essentially the finance manager, but then you report to the port manager, and the ESCO. So a part of it is financial services, because there's an element of also giving advice to the business in terms of like tariff applications, so you it's financial support, right? It's just how it was crafted, but it's not in any way like the financial services as we would know it in terms of like insurance, investments, and all of that. No, it's strictly a financial support department.
Okay. And Sivu was coming with the questions now. So do you think the alleged corruption in the public sector makes CAs draw back from wanting to join the public sector?
I don't think so. I just think probably, at universities, I like what the AGSA has now been doing for the profession. I think previously is that at a varsity level, as you getting your exposure, firstly with the vacation work, the public sector organizations, have been slacking on that. I don't see them running like vacation works, and so you get the audit firms, the banks, doing the vacation work. And then the thinking is that as a CA, my opportunities are better, in financial services, in audits, and all of that. But I mean, I think the insights like around corruption, you probably get it as you mature in the profession, and get it to understand a bit better. But the person at university, I honestly don't think they are deterred by the state of affairs, in terms of perception around corruption. I speak under correction, but I don't think there is a barrier. I just think that there is a slow progress in embracing and wanting to open the door for CAs in the public sector. So there's a lot of work to be done. I mean, at Transnet, I must be honest, the CA program, for an example, has been run at Transnet Group. And one has been trying to think, how can we filter this down to operating divisional level? So like with ODs, we've got the National Ports Authority, port terminals, transit engineering, that type of thing. But you don't see the CA program at that divisional level, so it's just those things that we need to do a bit more as the public sector to make ourselves seen, at a student level, that there is opportunities and there is value for CAs to consider public sector.
That's such a great idea of VAC work. I never thought of that. I'm like, yes, you only get VAC work at the big companies. Like, there's no reason why we can't have VAC work at other companies as well.
Absolutely,
that's something we need to look into.
Yeah.
And then last question we've got from Nkulelego, who says, "What's your advice to CAs that are working for municipalities, considering the political environment?" Another tough question.
Yeah, a very tough question. Look, I've been fortunate to do consulting work, with Bonagude Consulting. They do amazing work in the local government space. Again, I think, in our training, ways, there needs to be a lot of emphasis in relationship building, right? So when you invest in relationships, it's not that you are trying to be corrupt, So try and not look at like municipal managers, the CFOs, the council members as politicians. They may be politicians, but understand that you've earned your right to be there. Don't be easily intimidated by saying, no, you are just a technical person. You just focus on doing the recons. Insist to know what is going on. Don't close yourself in just the VETS recon, the financial statements, but insist in knowing what is going on, with the municipality, with the council. In fact, going back to Bulelani's question, the municipalities, in my opinion, there is the biggest enablers, supposed to be the biggest enablers in job creation. Because if just the eThekwini municipality, the Cape Town Metro, at a local government level, with the right skills, as the finance manager or a CFO in there, be prepared to engage, in these council meetings and understand, the projects, PMOs, project management offices, the supply chain, know what is going on there. Put yourself out there, get into those departments. They can say you're being nosy or anything. For as long as you're not doing anything illegal, it's your right to know what is happening with the municipality, because it touches the direct things around service delivery and improving the quality of life for the South African people.
And I mean, you touched on a great point there on networking. I mean, that applies in business as well. I don't want to take any more questions because I'm going to steal all of your time. But is there anything from your side, any last few words, or anything we didn't discuss that you'd like the audience to know?
All right. Well, yeah, it's just to highlight the fact that at the moment I am the deputy chairperson of Abasa KZN organization, doing really some great work, in terms of a promotion of the profession, within the Black community. But what I also just want to highlight is the fact that um, never betray your potential. What I've noticed, is like with me personally, is that I've taken setbacks, in my career, like way too personally, and neglected a lot of, things that I'm passionate about, in terms of community development and everything. So even if it's an annual, yearly exercise, or every 6 months or everything, but find a way to check in with yourself. There are things that you believe in. There are things that have just kept you going for all these years. Do not betray your potential. It is a time, yes, we're coming from a difficult time of COVID. We learned a lot of things. I do want to put out the challenge out there, and I'm challenging myself as well, that I have experienced a bit of like, a recession, in terms of a career inspiration and studying and all of those things. Take the time out that is needed to recharge, but do not betray your potential any longer. Whoever that I'm speaking to, we are here as, a great people in this profession, as chartered accountants and accountants in general. Check in with that potential of yours that you've always possessed. And it's about time that you tap into it. The world needs you. Thank you very much.
That's inspiring. That's a great way to end. The show has been live on YouTube and should be available on podcast by tomorrow. If you are watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast and you felt that it's added value, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on that notification bell to get automatically notified when the next episode comes out. Sanele, thank you so much for your time and for your inspiring work.
Thank you so much, Urias. Bless you.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us for another episode of Two Ways to Skin a Cat. Goodbye.